Hi, everybody. This is Jennifer from Weinberger Law Group. Thank you again so much for joining us in today's webinar. As you can see there on the screen, we are going to be talking about some common custody mistakes for women to avoid during a custody or parenting time issue that they may be having with their child's other parent. We're going to look at how to keep focused and look towards the best future for your family, you and your children. So let's get started. Our disclaimer, of course, this presentation contains general information and does not constitute legal advice. Please be sure to direct specific questions about your own situation to an attorney. Talk to us. As you know, we are live. We are live on Facebook doing this broadcast for you, and I'm going to do my best to answer any questions that you may have during the broadcast. So give us a thumbs up when you find this information useful and ask us any questions you have by leaving us a message in the chat box right underneath the presentation. If you're more comfortable and you want to ask a question via direct message, we can do that too, and we'll answer you once we're all finished here. So 7 common custody mistakes for women to avoid. How do you find what's in your children's best interests? What are we going to cover today? Well, we're going to talk about child custody and parenting time here in New Jersey and give you a bit of an overview on the law here with respect to child custody and parenting time. Then we're going to talk about those 7 common mistakes women should attempt to avoid. At the end, hopefully we'll have time for more questions if there are any, and we're going to give you some additional resources so you can have some further information. So part 1, custody, parenting time, and the best interest standard here in the Garden State. So what is the best interest standard in New Jersey? If you're already going through a custody case with your child's other parent, or if you have been through one, I'm sure you've heard the term thrown around, the best interest standard. Well, in all court cases in New Jersey that involve children, that involve custody or parenting time, judges must apply the best interest standard. That's what all courts have to look at when making these types of decisions that involve custody or parenting time. The court looks at several factors and weighs the advantages and disadvantages of all possible custody arrangements. So if a parent goes to the court and is asking for sole legal and physical custody, meaning they have the child the majority of the time and they're making all the big decisions, but the other parent wishes to share custody 50-50, the court will look at the factors contained in the law and weigh the advantages and disadvantages of those 2 arrangements. Now, the court evaluates the factors that are found in the statute that talk about the best interest standard at the same time or hand in hand with your particular family circumstances, because every family is different, every child's different. So the court, while guided by the statute, certainly has to look and see what your particular family's circumstances are. So what are those factors that the court will look at that are found in the New Jersey laws? Well, here they are. The fitness of the parents, the character and reputation of the parties, the parents here, the desire of the parents and any agreements between them. It's important to note here that courts love it when parents come together and come up with their own agreements without having to use the court system, so you should always strive to do that. The ability to maintain all family relationships, not just parent-child, but what about extended family? What is the ability to maintain peace in all family relationships? What about material opportunities affecting the future of the children? If the parent wants custody, physical custody, or residential custody, we also call it, what are the opportunities in that neighborhood or in that new location that will affect the future of the children? The age of the children, the health of the children, the sex of the children, all things that the court can look at. The residences of the parents and opportunities for parenting time. If you live in a one-bedroom apartment and you have 4 children, well, overnight parenting time is going to be difficult. So the court is going to look at where the children will have ample space and adequate accommodations for overnight parenting time. The length of separation from the other parent. Courts, will look at if parents want to look at a shared 50-50 custody and they want to do it month by month, well, that means that the child theoretically can be away from one parent for a whole month, and that might not be in the best interest of the child. If there's been any prior voluntary abandonment of the children, if one parent has taken off for 10 years at a time and there's been no contact, well, the court's going to look at that too if they're now showing up and asking for custody. Now we're going to move on to part 2 of our webinar today. We're going to talk about some of those common mistakes that we see women can make during custody or parenting time. Mistake number 1, viewing your child's other parent as the enemy. Now, of course, this goes for both men and women. All kinds of parents should avoid viewing their child's other parent as the enemy. Now, of course, there are exceptions, but the primary goal is for your child to share time with both parents. Acting as a co-parent, which is always what you want to strive for, means setting aside anger or bitterness or resentment in order to collaborate together to provide your child a calm and stable lifestyle. Again, a calm and stable lifestyle is going to be seen by the court as in their best interests. Of course, the court wants the children to be happy and healthy and thriving. And again, while there are exceptions, the courts strongly favor the participation of both parents in the child's life. It is never a good idea to be seen as alienating your child from their other parent or not allowing a thriving relationship to happen. So set aside your own agenda, set aside your anger and bitterness. I know it's easier said than done, but for your child, avoid seeing your ex as an enemy. Mistake number 2, demanding the wrong type of custody. Now, we always want to be realistic. I talked a little bit about a parent wanting regular overnights, but having a studio or a one-bedroom apartment with, 4 children. That's not realistic. Know that your options are these types of custody. So we have sole legal or sole physical custody, where one parent has that type of custody solely. There's joint legal custody, where both parents are sharing the decision-making for the child, the biggies, religion and school and, college, things like that. And then there's shared physical custody, where, it's a 50-50 split or near to it of, where the children actually are, where they're sleeping, where they're eating, where they're spending their day-to-day. Learning about each of these types of custody and how they will impact you and your child is really important, and always, again, keep their best interests at heart, because again, if you're working, you have a high-powered job and you're out of the house for 80 hours a week, it's probably going to be really difficult to have your children 4 days a week because you're just not going to be there, and you certainly don't want to have a shared custodial arrangement and then have the child with a babysitter. So again, keep their best interests at heart. This last point here is really important in that you need to remember gender is not a factor anymore. And what we mean by that is there is absolutely no guarantee that just because you're a male or a female, back when we had a doctrine that was called the tender years doctrine, where courts would give young children always to the moms because they believed that was essential for the children's development to be exposed to their mothers, for the early years in their life. This has been disproven. It's been debunked. Courts don't follow the tender years doctrine anymore. Psychologists don't believe it. Again, the belief is that the child thrives with both parents in their lives to the greatest extent possible. And now also with, same-sex families raising children, gender's just moved. So, don't assume that just because you're mom or just because you're female that you automatically get, any type of custody or parenting time. It's just not the case. Another common mistake that we see is parents working with an inexperienced attorney for their custody or their parenting time issues. Any licensed attorney can appear in family court. So if your, attorney is, barred in New Jersey and their license is, okay, and they've passed the bar and they've met all the requirements, they can certainly appear in family court. But you want to hire an attorney who's knowledgeable and who's experienced not only with New Jersey family law, but also one that's familiar with the court system and how the procedures work, because the procedures can get a little complicated. The timelines for filing, the timelines for answering something that's been filed against you. You need an attorney who knows not only, the best interest standard that we talked about, for example, but also how to go about filing and responding appropriately. It's also a good idea to have an attorney that's local to your court system. It's a big plus to have an attorney who knows the judges in the county, who's appeared before them many times. You know their personalities, how they tend to rule. You also get to learn court staff, and it's always a good thing to know the clerks and even the judge's secretary. So think about somebody who's not only knowledgeable about the law, experienced about the court procedures, but somebody who's local to you. An experienced attorney is also a source for other experts as needed. They'll be able to point you to a therapist in the event that the judge says we need an evaluation for custody or for parenting time. They've worked with these professionals, they trust them, and they can guide you to an experienced expert who can address your particular situation. It goes for financial experts, again, therapists, anybody who may be required in your case. The attorney is going to have built relationships with these types of experts and can recommend them with confidence. The fourth mistake I want to talk to you about a little bit is dismissing mediation. I touched base on this a little bit earlier about how courts really favor parents getting together and figuring out their problems. Now, sometimes parents can do that, across their dining room tables, but sometimes they need a little bit more of a formal procedure for this, and mediation is that procedure. It's the process where you and your child's other parent sit down with a neutral third-party mediator who helps you reach a settlement. These mediators are trained, and they're certified mediators here in New Jersey. Again, courts favor parents mediating and coming up with their own plans. Put aside your anger, drop any plans for a long, bitter court battle. Don't dig in your heels and say, I'm going to court no matter what. It's going to get you nowhere fast, and it's going to run up your stress level, and it's going to run up your legal bills. So don't dismiss mediation out of hand. Again, there are circumstances where mediation just isn't appropriate. If there's a domestic violence situation, or you just believe your child's other parent isn't going to, be forthcoming during mediation. But, start off this process with the idea that you're going to reach your own resolution. And quite frankly, don't you want to map out your own future and come up with your own arrangements without the stranger, the judge, coming up with, an arrangement for your family? So really consider sitting down and attempting to negotiate and craft your own agreement that governs now and going forward. Now, we do get this question a lot. Mistake 5 is leaving New Jersey without a court order. What does that mean? Well, we do get this question a lot, so we wanted to put it in here. Just because you have been granted sole legal and physical custody, that does not mean that you are free to move out of the state of New Jersey without permission from either the court or from your child's other parent. Now, while you may want to relocate with your children to a new state, perhaps you got a new job, or you're originally from, Wisconsin, and you have no family here and you want to be closer to your family, you can't do that without written permission from their other parent. Now, parents may say, well, he told me I could go, or she told me I could go. you need to get it in writing because there's no proof. And if your ex brings up, an issue in court and says, I never said that, you're not going to have proof. So you need it in writing. Or if you don't believe that the court is going to permit you, or your child's other parent's going to allow you to move, you're going to have to get permission from the court. You're going to have to file an application with the court, an application for permission to relocate, and you're going to have a hearing. If you go without permission, the court can, without you even being in New Jersey, order that your child be immediately returned to the state. And if you don't, you can face sanctions or even kidnapping charges. I know, you're thinking, how do I kidnap my own child? You're right, but the law is that without these permissions, again, either from your ex or from a judge, you're violating the law, and you can't just leave on your own with the child. So don't make that mistake, because if you do go without permission, it's going to raise a world of stress and trouble when you come back to New Jersey with the child. So again, go about this the right way. If you don't know how to go about filing an application for relocation, talk to an attorney. They'll be able to advise you. Another common mistake we see, forgetting to take school into consideration. Now, again, this kind of goes hand in hand with relocating out of the state. If you wish to move either to a new area in New Jersey, say you want to go to a different county, or even to a different state, it's important to learn all that you can about your child's prospective school system. If you need to go to court for permission to go, now again, you can theoretically move within New Jersey without, going through the rigors of filing to relocate. But you can't affect your child's other parents' parenting time with the child. So, for example, if you're living up in Fort Lee and you get a job opportunity down in Cape May, that is going to theoretically affect your parenting time arrangement, because that's a good distance, and it's a good distance for your child to be in the car. So if you do end up in court over this move, the judge is going to want to know all about the educational system where you want to move with your child. And you have to show that the school system is at least as good as where your child is currently going. Again, it's not better, but it has to be at least as good. So, think about, especially if you have a child with special needs that are being addressed in the current school system, be sure that where you're going is going to be able to provide the same supports that your child is getting in their current school environment. And the last mistake we see that happens during custody or parenting time issues in court is a parent not keeping documentation. Now, if this unfortunately becomes for you an all-out parenting time battle or custody battle, you could see accusations getting hurled, from one parent to the other. So any and all documentation of your relationship with your children can be really very important to show the quality of your relationship with your children, the depth of the relationship with your children, because, if your child's other parent's going to come back and say, she never spends any time with the children. I have the children all the time. She hasn't been around for months. Well, if you have documentation, photographs of you and the children at various activities, and, even if you're keeping a daily journal, this is all really important to show that, no, that's not true. And we do have a strong bond, and we do have a really strong relationship. And this can go a long way to, showing the judge why you should have 50 custody, for example. So, keep a journal if you feel as though it's going to be an issue. Documentation can also help protect you from, hopefully not, but any false allegations of, domestic violence or abuse or neglect of your children. If you feel as though, your spouse or your ex has, the capability or the inclination to, start hurling false accusations at you because, unfortunately your relationship has deteriorated to that point, it's really, really important for you to keep an active journal journal everything that's happened that day, even if it seems mundane. Keep photographs and, any pertinent or relevant emails or text messages, with threats from your ex. Hopefully you don't find yourself in this situation, but if you do, it's always a good idea to protect yourself and protect your children really from some kind of, long drawn out crazy court battle. Just a thought to leave you with: custody is really arguably the most emotional situation you will face during your separation from your significant other or your divorce if you and your ex were legally married. Taking simple steps now and making plans for the future are really the best ways to avoid custody or parenting time mistakes if you do end up having a battle, or even if you just have a disagreement on how custody or parenting time should work. Take some simple steps now. Make plans, gather your documentation, all the things we talked about. Think about the future, and then this way you'll avoid any of these mistakes that we talked about. Well, that's it for today. Thanks again so much for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe to our Facebook events tab so you can be notified about upcoming live webinars. You can see the link there. Also, if you want to reach out to us, our toll-free number is 888-888-0919. You can give us a shout to set up your free consultation with us, with one of our very experienced and compassionate attorneys. If you need to come in and talk about custody or parenting time, if you're going through a divorce, really any family law issue that you may have, give us a call, come in, schedule your free consultation with us. You can also visit us online at weinbergerlawgroup.com. There you'll find a whole lot of information, not only about custody and parenting time, but domestic violence and divorce. There's blogs there that you can read up on this topic and any other one. It's really a great resource for information.